is a cool setup, isn't it? I didn't buy anything like special for this video. This is all my financial decisions. Yeah. Anyways. Anyone who's been on the internet long enough has like encountered at least some form like fandom or like fans online or like offline. Whether you're like into, I'd say mainstream shows like Grey's Anatomy or like Stranger Things or like anything involving the MCU, like the Avengers and all that, you've likely encountered some form of fandom or fan space online. But if you, dear viewer, have no idea what I'm talking about when I say these terms of fandoms and fan culture, let me explain. So the most basic definition of like fandoms that I made myself is like a group of people sharing a common interest, typically over like a show, movie, musician, video games, that type of stuff. And some examples are Minecraft, the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, Doctor Who, Taylor Swift, literally any K-pop group, most anime shows, like the list goes on. Any show or movie could have its own fandom no matter how small or big it is. Yeah. And it's like no secret that fan culture has had an influence on society. Like fans are definitely involved in the conversation on a lot of things. Like fans themselves are often like criticized, stereotyped, and unfortunately shamed for enjoying the shows and games that they're into. And like usually this is stereotyped about fangirls, like obsessing over a musician. But like this applies to all genders if we're being honest. Not to mention the minority of like toxic and disrespectful fans. And I say fans lightly because if you're hating on a show, how are you a fan? They ruin the spaces for everyone, like with their hateful discourse, and like they paint fandoms in a negative light and make it bad for everyone. Like, they're not cool, man. But like, that's only a small portion of like what goes on in fandoms. Like, not all fandoms are like filled to the brim with toxicity. There are some, but again, small minority. They've actually been more positive than negative in their impact. They make spaces of community and foster creativity among fans around the world. And like, they're shaping pop culture and society, man, as we know it. Like, they have a huge positive impact on society, and I feel like most people don't talk about that enough. And I hear you, dear viewer. I see you and I hear you. You're like, I don't believe you, Vic. Don't believe me. Well, baby, let me present you with the facts. Oh my god. Let me show you. One of the most obvious effects of fandom in this positive light is the bonds and communities people form as a result of their shared interests. And nowadays, these connections and communities are like primarily found online and formed through social media sites like Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Discord, Tumblr, Amino at one point. It was a site specifically made for fandoms, but it's dark, we don't talk about it. These spaces online have also been places where fans can not only connect through messaging and chat groups, they've also allowed fans to share fan creations, fan edits of their own, and more. This, among other things, is mentioned in Yangqingge's Zhao's article on the analysis of social impact of fandom culture and idol context. Here's a little quote I found in it. It basically, the whole paper he wrote talks about how the intersection of fans and idols, specifically in Asian countries. It's incredibly interesting. There's a lot of like positives and negatives that all go into it, but I won't bore you with the details. Just love this quote. Thank you. But specifically, I want to touch on the social media platform of Twitter for a brief moment because of how influential it can be, not just for other fans, but mainly been for K-pop stans. As we've seen in the past, like 4 years. One example I'm sure many people, at least my age or younger or older, that are aware of, is when Trump was having free rally tickets and was like, hey, sign up, you'll get 2 tickets. So you know what these K-pop stans did? They signed up, They got the tickets and straight up didn't go to the rally. So like they were projecting like hundreds of thousands of people will be coming. And only like 1,000 people came, which honestly, that was so clever, honestly. But it just fell flat. And they did that all on Twitter. They organized that on Twitter. And originally, I was just gonna have that example until I heard about the Met Gala. For many that don't know, the K-pop boy group Stray Kids made history as being the first ever K-pop group to be invited to the Met Gala by Tommy Hilfiger. And when they were on the red carpet, they were experiencing a literal ton of racial remarks from a lot of the photographers and paparazzi that were there. Like, they were saying extremely racist things, like, I hope I don't get COVID from them, asking them to say words in Korean when a lot of their members do speak English. It was just all very unsettling, and of course, their fans, their stays, they were not going to take that lightly. So, not even a day or two after the Met Gala ended, there was one photographer in particular, I don't remember his name, but if I do, I'll edit it here. They found all of his information. Not just his, but like all the photographers' names that were making these racial remarks. They found their information, found their social media. They hacked his site, saying to apologize to Stray Kids. Don't mess with K-pop stans. They will fuck you up. I'm sure most of you know that by now, but like, after that happened, damn. But yeah, it is so easy to find stuff on the internet, and K-pop stans know that and will use that to their advantage if you disrespect any of the idols they are like, that's all the idols they like. Like, hello? And these are two clearly great examples of how you can come through together on the internet as fans in order to make some real impact in real life rather than simply online ventures. But there are some fans that'll just be on social media to just interact with fans and fan art without like worrying about like, who do we need to dox next? That's an exaggeration. Not all fans are like that. But it is how some fans are, unfortunately. Even so, people were and are still able to create community through fandoms offline too. Like for instance, in many schools and universities, at least my experience living in the US, there are so many clubs that like cover things with fandom culture, like anime, gaming, cosplay, art. It goes on. And one of the first ways I was able to find like a group of people that I truly felt like I belonged to here at my university was through the cosplay club that holds weekly meetings. And in the spring semester, they hosted their annual convention. And it was my first ever cosplay convention, and I had a great time, let me tell you. You can probably find that out more on my Instagram once I post about it. But yeah, these offline groups can also have a huge impact on both people, and it can also get the word out there that like, hey, there are people in your area who like this stuff too. It's a really nice like bringing together people experience. And it's why it's important to have spaces offline rather than just online, like in real life. So people can find a sense of belonging among each other and not feel cut off from all fans all over the world, because that's no way to live. Geeks, Fandoms, and Engagement is an article written by Dale Peeples, Jennifer Yen, and Paul Weigel. It examines so much of the cultural component of fandoms and what they bring to society and how fan spaces of community and creativity can lead to a positive boost in fans' overall morale. And I'll stick a quote from them right here because I loved reading this article, honestly. Seriously, there's so many academic pieces about fandom, it's crazy. Positive interactions with fans in all kinds of spaces can result in the overall fandoms being more open and livelier and likely evolving into a space online or offline. Just bustling with content and creativity. Positive interactions on the daily. And even in a more individual sense, fans creating a space of bonding in this community, you can say. People, or for months, or even years at a time, they can form these friendships within these communities and relationships. Whether online or offline, but mainly online. Like long distance, you can form relationships with people all over the world, like from the US to like Australia, China, Scotland. And like, you can have some of your closest friends be across the world and not even barely know the same language as you. And they can sometimes be closer relationships than fans have in real life. And they leave a huge positive impact on them just as an individual and to everyone involved. Basically, the point I'm getting across is that finding other fans with common interests, engaging with fan-made works, created both on and offline spaces of acceptance and communal support that allows fans to both make an impact on the topic and advocate if they want to, and have fun interacting with other fans just simultaneously through fan art or fan fiction or forums. Like, what'd you think about that last episode? I don't know, man. I'm still trying to figure out the rest of the lore. Five Nights at Freddy's can do that to you. Again, if you don't want to interact with other fans and just want to lurk around and find fan art or fan fiction, you can totally do that. There's no one way to interact with fandom. I will say that, like, I like to say most fandoms are this optimistic, but I know some of them aren't. But again, small minority. Most of them are, honestly. But yeah, this is something I wanted to briefly touch upon, and it's the economic impact fandoms have had. And this is mainly talking about musicians, because fans will typically buy like the merch, the albums, the inclusives some of these albums have, because I will be talking about K-pop artists. And they'll buy the stuff for the artist, and in return it supports the artist, and it allows them to grow bigger, both in popularity and just social-wise. It's like a cycle. Fans buy stuff, makes the artist bigger, the artist gets to perform bigger, which allows for more merch to be created. Then the cycle repeats. But I do have an example. I'm gonna pull out my little Jimmy Ray plushie from Stray Kids, but I'm not gonna be talking about Stray Kids just yet. BTS, literally the biggest K-pop group, I think, almost ever. Not only have they made so much social impact across the world, especially making like first in America with the Billboard Awards, but also, I'm gonna pull up this statistic right here, I don't remember it, but they've contributed so much to the South Korean economy that the government was considering giving them a waiver for the mandatory military service men have to do in South Korea because of how much money not only they were making, but the fans were buying, like their merch. Like their merch made the country go round. It was crazy. But also, their international and national support allowed for more up-and-coming groups to also expand their reach with their fans all around the world. Like Stray Kids recently at the Met Gala, which I did mention before, but it's important to mention that they're the first ever full K-pop group to be invited to the Met Gala. They were invited by Tommy Hilfiger, but yeah, they've been able to make monumental strides. I could go on, but I won't. And another group I'd like to mention is one that's in a line above me called ATEEZ. They were the first ever K-pop boy group to perform at Coachella, which is a huge American festival, and it's huge for them because they don't come from such a big company back in South Korea, and I can say they did kill Coachella. I briefly touched on this in the beginning, but judging by what I surround myself with, you can tell I have some expertise when it comes to fandoms. Like, for example, I actually got this pre-ordered. This is my Glass Scientist Volume 1 copy. These are a bunch of K-pop albums I recently got into. One of my dearest online friends got me a Doctor Who bookcase with little fairy tales for my birthday. A little Funko Pops. This I got at a convention recently. The one my university's club was hosting. Funny enough. We got Vash the Stampede. All of these I printed out and decorated. But yeah. I've been in my fair share of fandoms over the past 10 years, ranging from like mainstream shows like The Umbrella Academy and Moon Knight to like obscure stuff like the Clue movie from 1985 and the YouTube series Anna by Joel G. But bigger than that, I'm facing it, I genuinely wouldn't be who I am today without fandoms. Most of my closest friendships to date have come out of fandoms surrounding like long-running animes and video games we can bond over. And the same friends have been a godsend in helping me through the hardest times of my life, especially recently. And if any of you are watching this, Hi. I love you all. Thank you. Fandoms, ironically, have also brought me closer with my own mom because she recently got into Star Trek, and through that I was able to show her shows like Doctor Who and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. She's also just really interested in seeing what I enjoy, and we've been able to bond over a lot about that. I'm very happy. It strengthened my own relationship with her. I was also in fandoms at a very young age, and growing up I was probably around the age of 10 when I was like aware enough that I was in a fandom, but I was invested in shows like that way before, like Minecraft and Loopsies. But growing up in my teen years, I discovered social media, and of course, being the person that I am, I wanted to look up things I was interested in, and I found like really good fan art of it, and then I kept getting into my fandoms. I kept looking at more different fan art. I made Pinterest boards of it. I eventually downloaded Wattpad, which is a site used to write books, but mainly fan fiction. Started reading fan fiction. Almost made my own fan fiction, but didn't because it was Hamilton, and it would have been really weird. Don't speak about that dark time. I was like 13 at the time, so. And many other times throughout middle school and high school, fandoms online or like they were some of the only ways I didn't feel as alone as I did in real life, which happened often. It still does happen often, honestly, but I'm not gonna get into my whole life story. But because of how much I love looking at fan art and stuff like that, I could see from my favorite shows and games, it genuinely kept me going whenever I was feeling alone and depressed. And later, when I got out of high school, I started playing games like Cookie Run Kingdom, Genshin Impact, Project Sakai, that also had huge fandoms surrounding it at the time. And I was able to find fan art from them on other sites, and it just keeps going in a cycle even to this day. Like, I'm still heavily involved in fandom, and if I'm still feeling down some days, I'll still use Pinterest and Tumblr avidly to find like funny reactions of Hongjun from ATEEZ, or if I'm looking for some gorgeous Doctor Who fan art. Fandom has quite literally penetrated almost every part of my life right now, and I've met so many fans and friends over the years who've had similar experiences in fandom, and I've also met people who just don't know what fandom is or was until they joined TikTok in like 2020. Those coming from my social media platforms, you're gonna know what I'm about to talk about. My love for fandoms has no bounds, and I love crossing over fandoms with each other, which is basically like taking shows and like movies that don't necessarily go together, but you like force them together and they interact. Well, I went viral on TikTok back in February of 2024 for a 52 fandom crossover. I believe I added more fandoms since then, so it's larger now. I'm still making it, don't worry. But I posted it as like a meme on TikTok. I didn't think it'd get as many views. I thought it'd maybe get like 100 likes, and I was like, okay, cool with that. But no. I was like, oh, I have these many fandoms. You are now one of my elite employees. Like, that was the audio I used. I'll link it in the description if you want to see the actual TikTok. And soon enough, it was my first and only video to reach 1 million views. And it like exponentially boosted my account. Like, I'm almost at 6,000 followers now because of it. The most important thing about that video I want to talk about is the comments, because I kept getting flooded notifications from the comments of people being like, oh my god, I never thought of this, or like, I did think of this, I've never had an original idea. But like, I know that's sort of like a joke. And then there are other people sharing their own crossover ideas in my comment section about crossovers. It like created its own little micro community within my own comment section. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. It was just like a beautiful blossom of a fandom space where people could interact and talk about their own crossovers. And of course, like, I have not an original thought, like stuff like that. But every time I look back on that comment section of that video, I smile every time. And not just me, everyone who saw it, everyone who shared it, everyone who liked it, everyone who saw those comments in my video. It got a few people feeling less alone. And honestly, I feel like it's probably one of the biggest impacts I've made on the internet to date. And it makes me very proud. Yeah, the impact fandoms make on a societal and individual level is not one to miss, as we just saw, especially when so much of how shows are produced in the modern day have been directly influenced by fandoms and fans as early as the 60s. But again, Vic, I don't understand. What do you mean by that? Well, I'll tell you. Picture this. It's 1960s. You're a huge fan of the original series of Star Trek, the Trekkie, if you will, when it was first airing on television. There are 2 seasons in, and because the show hasn't been renewed by the network NBC, you and your fellow fans believe the show will end with only 2 seasons. Fortunate, but true. Right? Wrong. Y'all won't let that slide because you're so devoted to these characters that you want another season. And what did these fans do to get another season? Because they got one. They organized a lettering campaign and wrote over 100,000 letters to the network urging them not to cancel the original series of Star Trek and to get another season. It worked, even back in the 60s when mobile phones and compact computers were still considered futuristic, way before the age of the internet even. And it worked clearly with the final season being made, and now Star Trek is a huge-ass franchise with like 10 plus movies, 11 plus shows, in-person conventions. My mom won't stop talking about them. You get what I mean. They were able to do stuff like this when the internet was not even conceived yet. Can you imagine what fans could be doing now with this type of level of banding together and advocating for a good cause at fandom? I mean, you can. I mentioned some examples earlier with the K-pop stuff. But an impact like this was never seen before by any fan space in the 60s, and Trekkies were largely responsible for setting the foundation for how the current entertainment industry operates, with more direct communication between showrunners and fans of these shows. Of course, this does not stop in the 60s with first Star Trek, the original series. Fandoms still have a huge impact on their shows. Like, for instance, Loki, Thor's sidekick, kind of villainy brother at the beginning of like the MCU with the Avengers. Fans were so sad that he was not getting enough screen time. They wanted more of him. He was so beloved by fans that Disney resurrected him and gave him his own Disney Plus series, which I believe it either has or is coming out with a season 2 sometime soon. And like, it's not hard to see why fans would fall in love with Loki. He's a morally great character with a tragic backstory, pretty fluid gender, he's pretty hot, like face-wise too. Tom Hiddleston looks amazing. And like tragic backstories to boot, and a lot of charisma. And like, it'll get any fan interested in him wherever the MCU takes him. Cause fans, whenever they're devoted or really like a character that they can see themselves as, or like can relate to easily, they will be more invested in that character, and they will want more of them. I'm not just saying this because I know it from personal experience, but I know it from peers of mine too that have said the same thing. It's gotten to the point in modern day studios where studios are looking at how fans interact as a guideline for what they should do next with the show. Like, oh, look at these 2 characters. They're super in love. I want to ship them. They would make such a good pair in future seasons. Oh, fans are shipping them? Well, maybe we'll get them a bit closer. They may not make the pair canon or anything, but they'll give them more interactions because they know that's what the fans want. And like, they could just fall in love easily and just become a couple. That would get fans absolutely nuts. Like, yes! But that doesn't happen all the time, I will admit. And I'm not going to completely gas up fandoms. Like, we know they've had a huge positive impact on society, but I feel like this video wouldn't be correct in only talking about the positive aspects. Because there are so many dark sides to fandom that a lot of people know and a lot of people don't. Like, there are already so many toxic incidents just like coming to mind right now of just the fandoms I've been in. And like, there's so many like toxic, hateful, and like disrespectful fans that'll like make discourse either for the hell of it or to piss other people off. In those kinds of atmospheres, it kills the vibe for everybody. And I'm not just saying that to be like, they're evil, ew. Like, they've actually had a pretty substantial negative impact on fandoms. Like, it's made fandoms as a whole look bad, but then there's also the real life events that have come out of it. Like, for example, the Voltron fandom, there were these two characters, Keith and Lance. They were young guys, 18, 19. Fans shipped them together and like wanted them as a romantic pairing, but the showrunners just didn't want that to happen. And so they were sent death threats constantly over it if they didn't make Clance, which was the ship name, canon. It even got to the point where someone did in fact send glass cupcakes over to where they were working. That event still haunts me, honestly, but yeah. And then there's also the disrespectful cosplayers, like people that'll proudly put, I don't know if I can say this word, but it's the bad German word, because there's a anime called Hestalia where it humanizes a lot of countries. In Germany during World War II, you can see why people cosplaying Germany from World War II with accurate symbols would be a huge problem, especially when you're showcasing that off in a public space with other fans and possibly children around. Yeah, it's not fun. And also, there's the backlash that some actors will get, especially in the MCU recently, like with Miss Marvel or any other like person of color playing a role, or even any women playing a role. They will get backlash simply for being their own race or being their own sex. It is awful what toxic fans will go to, but also it does not accurately represent all of fandom. Sure, it's a small minority. It is a loud minority, but it's not all of fandom. And it's not right to call it all of fandom. It's not right to call all fans obsessive or disrespectful or too much. Yeah, it's not right to generalize fans like that, because fans are such a diverse population of people that you really can't generalize fans other than they all like share a common interest or something. Yeah, I want to end this video off by saying that fandoms have made an overall impact on society, as we've seen. Not only just through, not just the shows that have come out and have gained fan bases, but also the shows that have been saved by fan bases. And there's so much else, like the economical impact with musicians, and also the general positive community that fandoms tend to create. It's left so many people's lives happier, honestly, with this blossoming of creativity and community that fans maybe not have experienced before in real life. And they're tons of fun to be in too, like interacting with your favorite people over your favorite show. That sounds like a dream, but it's not. It's fandom. I don't want to completely gas up fandom. There are definitely toxic sides to it too, but there's enough people out there that enjoy the positive aspects and that will take down the toxic arguments, that it balances out. Like, the positive outweighs the negative in this sense. I know personally I wouldn't be who I am today without fandoms. I don't know where I'd be, because I've been in them for so long. But yeah, thank you so much for watching my little video. I hope you really appreciated it. If you want to see more content from me, I don't usually post on YouTube, but you can find me on TikTok and Instagram. So yeah.